Welcome back to StudPokerReport.com. You might have seen a few hands played by now, and I hope you were able to see some common errors at the table from your opponents and, hey, maybe even yourself too. This video will be about combining your starting hand selection with reading opponent hands. Since there is so much information to be extracted from exposed cards in 7-card stud, that information alone should be your most reliable source for making decisions.
I see.
There is profiling, like in any poker game, but window cards in 7-card stud will more often lead you to the correct decision. Think like a detective, where all the evidence is on the table in front of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Later on in this video, we will also touch on pot size management and making sure you are involved in positive EV plays in the learning stage anyway. We'll be doing that with some real hand examples. So without getting into the betting sequences, let's just look at a hand and see what we can surmise by simply using the evidence of door cards right in front of us. After third street is dealt in this hand, I have a decent middle pair, which I look around to see what other hand I am immediately concerned about. That part is easy because there's 3 other players with 3 bigger cards than mine, and since this is a medium pair, I'm just going to call. Like most poker games, big cards are always better to play with, and if either of these players already have a big pair, then of course I'm behind to start this hand right from the get-go. As it happens, those 3 players and 2 others stick around to see 4th street, and some interesting cards are dealt which requires some more poker think. This is an excellent spot for me because not only did I hit a set, and very likely the best hand here, there are 3 players with pairs showing now, and that means this pot could get big. The pocket 5s player here could have hit 2 pairs since he stuck around on 3rd street. Same with the guy with 2 9s, or who knows, he might be on a mid-range straight draw. I'm not sure yet. I have to think the 4 did not help this player though, and a heart draw looks kind of unlikely now due to folded cards and my own 2 hearts that I have in the hole. Another ace on this table likely means nobody has a pair of aces either, but both of these players could now have legitimate Broadway draws. Now, 4 players see 5th street, and when I'm in a hand on 5th street, I also try and think at least a little bit about my opponent's playing style, because this is where a lot of players make critical mistakes in deciding to carry on with a hand or not.
What do you mean?
At the same time, I'm trying hard to remember what cards have been folded as well. Another pair shows on the table, and that 6 didn't really help me, but it could lead to players betting into me, which is probably good. I think I'm still ahead here, but that paired queen is somewhat of a concern now, as there is now a hand showing that could possibly beat mine. And I also know there were no other queens in play yet. I think the deuce is a brick, but I'm just not sure about this king over here one way or another yet. This is interesting. Both of my opponents were dealt an 8, which I must surmise to be of no help to either player. And I was dealt a 5, which certainly reduces the chances of my opponent having 3 5s or even a full house.
Then why don't you stop lying?
So, who wins this hand? Well, you know what? It really doesn't matter, because this exercise is about surmising my opponent's hands based on known cards. Remember, you've got to think like a detective here, analyzing the evidence in front of you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions.
In that sense, I'm more concerned about this opponent than this one, though, because I believe this opponent has at least 2 pair, and there is a chance he does have a full house. With just a 5 as a door card, I usually think a player like this has a wired pair or a split pair if he has stayed in this long. The other player does show a pair of queens, but 3 10s, 3 kings, 1 jack, and 2 other aces. Not only that, 4 clubs are all dead to him. So this pair could be all he has, along with his busted straight and flush draws. Profiles notwithstanding, to me this is likely a value bet situation for me here with my trip 10s. Now, before we look at some real hands, the mucked cards in 7 stud often play a huge role in your decision making, so it's a good thing to get in the habit of using a system to remember what they are. It is tough to remember specific cards, so the idea is to try grouping them into easier ways to remember. For instance, 4 hearts, 3 Broadway cards, pair of 9s, 4 wheel cards, Or even better yet, ranking them in your head and keep a running tab of the succession of numbers such as 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 9, Jack, King, Ace. And then you can also remember how many were suited, so you can say 4 hearts. Don't make the mistake of trying to remember more than what was folded already. There's no need to confuse the issue with cards that are still in play and, basically staring you in the face because they're still on the table. So this is something you can practice when you're not in the hand, just remembering all the mucked cards, as it will help your memory and concentration when you need it most. Alright, so here is a hand where I limped in late position with a somewhat weak but potentially strong 3 Broadway cards. Yes, this hand needs a lot of help, but hands like these are good to see for cheap with multiple opponents. Now that doesn't mean calling raises heads up. Remember all those Hold'em lessons about positive EV? Well, the same applies here in stud when playing hands like these, because you want multi-way pots. When a hand like this hits, then you can take down a sizable pot to more than make up for the times you miss your draws. Now, with the lone ace showing here, I also think it's unlikely I will be re-raised, so yeah, I'm in. I call. Okay, a little bit later in the hand, I've made it to 5th Street now, and the bet size doubles, and now I have a straight and flush draw. I do decide to call this bet against 2 opponents because of the pot odds for one thing, but because I also know there are 7 diamonds and 3 non-diamond jacks that I can hit to win this hand. Nice. I hit my straight on 6th Street, but my opponent is showing 2 high pair. This is probably a must call for me because my opponent was betting right from the start like he had a pair in the hole, but because I knew he couldn't have another ace because of mucked cards, and there were also 4 mucked clubs, and let me see, another king was already folded, I surmised he was betting another lower pair. And now he just continued his betting with 3 pair and possibly a miss flush. Now, of course, either way, given the pot odds here, this straight is a call, but it also helps when you really do know what your opponent is holding. Unlike the last hand where I wanted the pot small until I hit my card, with a made hand like this, my opponent called my raises from 3rd Street all the way down, and I decided to value bet this river here because I knew another jack and a 4 were already mucked, as well as 2 other diamonds. He called my pre-flop raise, and I had a king showing as a door card, so I surmised he had jack split or a lower wired pair perhaps. Since he did not re-raise me on 5th or 6th Street, I then put him on 2 pair at best.
Just like that.
Yep, it's a win. Paying attention like a detective in 7-card stud is critical, and you have to do it with a detective's perspective, deducing and surmising all the way the most likely course of action based on empirical data right in front of you. So I hope this video helps you. In the next video, we see some hands and strategies for playing that annoying little bring-in, and also how to decide if it's a good idea to play beyond 4th Street when you get into the double bet size, which is usually an important decision.
Harry Francis Larwell was tried and convicted of forgery, 8 counts. He is now serving his term in the state penitentiary, San Quentin, California.
All right then, thanks for dropping by, and remember to keep your eyes open out there.
You got anything?